My buddy, he works for the Ringer, the Ryen Russillo podcast. You ever notice that company sold right after he joined him? Yeah. Hope he got a big payout. What's up, buddy? How are you doing on a Tuesday?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. So the NBA yesterday comes out and says, we're going to open up some facilities, individual stuff, and the Atlanta Hawks GM pushes back. Euro was very, very well connected to a lot of executives in this league. What's the state of it right now, facilities opening up, and what you're hearing, Ryan?
I think what happened here is one, the league was tired of hearing guys tweet, I haven't touched a ball in 6 weeks. But the thing that has been consistent about this, Colin, everybody I've talked to, is that they don't want there to be any kind of disadvantage competitively. They don't want to say, hey, this place is cool, so you guys can open up and you guys can start practicing, but you can't in other cities, because we all know this, the 30 owners, they're just not going to be on the same page. And the other fear was whether it was Florida, maybe Georgia, maybe Texas, and some of the states that are more aggressive in reopening, they didn't want the NBA facility to be closed in that area and then have like 5 NBA players go run full court at a gym, like at a health club, just because they could. So they were trying to find a way to balance the competitive advantage-disadvantage while also trying to have it be controlled, and to the point where it would be 3 players in a facility, none of them even allowed to go one-on-one, one-on-0 work, and do anything to try to get these guys with the ball in their hands, but also have it be under NBA control. But the problem is, like everything, every plan is immediately met with like 7 reasons why it isn't going to work. So this thing is definitely going slower than some of the stuff maybe we thought last week with the reopening.
So The Last Dance is obviously been, fascinating. I saw some stuff you and Bill did on it. I was just saying that it's okay that the Pistons are getting whacked. They're the Larry Holmes of heavyweight champions. They didn't have a lot of dignity, grace, or class. They were just the champions for a long time. And we look back at them unapologetically harshly. And I think that's what they were. Jerry Krause gets beat up a little bit here. Yes, he's passed, but he deserves to get beat up a little bit here. Is there anything, any mythology or anything so far on the dock that didn't sit well with you, Ryan?
No, let's stay on the Pistons thing, because they have this persecution complex that's beyond any franchise I can remember. And here's the thing, like, they were really, really good. It was a really unbelievable roster and how adaptable they were. They could go small with all those guards. ISIAH, I think, is maybe one of the most underrated NBA players I've ever watched.
Yes.
Think about where he's even brought up historically. He had a short career because of the injury. He knew what he was sacrificing. They could have arguably had the 3rd ring, with the Lakers the first time they lost to him. But this is really simple, and this applies to all of us in life. If your neighborhood is the Lakers and Celtics of the 80s, and then MJ moves in for the 90s, you're going to be the 4th topic. You just are. Like, the Pistons are the 4th topic, and they do this thing like, no one likes us because we knocked off the Celtics, we knocked off the Lakers, we knocked off Chicago. No one likes you because you beat up their favorite players. Like, we were just, if I grew up a fan of any of those other cities, I would just be like, no, I don't like these guys. So I think their standing and where they fit in is perfect. And as far as ISIAH goes, the problem for him is that now he's doing the explanation tour of why they didn't shake hands. And he should have been on the Dream Team. But if Michael wasn't going to be on the Dream Team because ISIAH was going to be on it, then guess what? No ISIAH. But ISIAH's rationale of the whole thing, saying, well, the Celtics did it to us. Well, no, they didn't. There's video evidence of it. Video's 30 years ago, not 300 years ago. Like, we see that they left because of a security reason. And in the moment, I could see Lambeer and ISIAH and all those guys being, hey, it's kind of funny, like, let's not shake their hands. And I'm sure now, 30 years later, getting dragged about it, they regret it. But whether it's that explanation or the Larry Bird controversy, Colin, like, ISIAH's explanations don't really hold up, and I think that actually does it more of a disservice historically.
Bill got beat up a little bit yesterday, but I don't think he was necessarily wrong where he said, Dennis Rodman, why are we making him so interesting? I do think he was interesting, but I also think he's wildly needy, and his mythology on how valuable he was is somewhat overstated. Where do you fall on Rodman?
Well, that was where we started the conversation. And I admit that most people, everybody disagrees with me if you listen to the podcast. I just go, we did this thing, and I think it's more of a study on how boring we can be, right? And it's like, oh, my God, this guy dyed his hair? Oh, we got to get this guy on Barbara Walters. And you just go, okay, what do you got? And every interview is the same. Every interview was always, man, nobody understands me. Okay, well, you're on Barbara Walters. Go for it, man. And It was a very, I thought, and look, it was even funnier too, Colin, as I get older now, anything I do, it's like, oh, you're just an old man. I'm like, I felt this way when I was 19.
Yeah.
Like, could you not see how orchestrated this was? And it was good for him. It was great. It made him marketable. He made money off of this thing. He kind of crossed over into amazing role player, into NBA superstar who doesn't even score, which is an incredible accomplishment. But as far as his actual interviews and stuff he said or didn't say, I've always thought they were underwhelming.
Yes, Madonna dumped him. And when she did, do you remember her quote? She said, I thought there was more there, and there wasn't. That was Madonna. So you and Simmons, I mean, seriously, I agree with you. It's like he was a great rebounder, but he was needy. He was high maintenance. He was into Dennis. You had to spend a lot of time. I mean, it's fascinating. Phil Jackson, the Native American culture connection. It's fascinating. But I'm with you guys is that he was great at one thing, but you had to... We've made him into some... there are players in pro sports that have fascinating stories. His was a lot of shtick to get on book covers and Barbara Walter interviews. Okay, I got to ask you this. I want your take, because I haven't heard it yet, on the Packers were 13-3 last year. Vegas now has them as an over-under 9-win team. They got a lot of breaks last year. They played Kansas City without Mahomes. Seattle fell apart. They had a third-place schedule. So do they really realize that they weren't competitive against San Francisco? It's not that they like Jordan Love. But, God, I don't think they're as good roster-wise as Minnesota. I think you need more players. That was my takeaway on the Jordan Love. What was yours on that pick?
It's great to have the homeowners liability, right? We can do all those things out here, earthquake, all that stuff. But, if you have alien invasion coverage, that I guess you can get it. But is it really necessary? And that's what I think some of these franchises do with these quarterback drafts. For Belichick, who is, let's face it, he's overrated as a drafter.
Yes.
The last few years have been abysmal. And when he was taking quarterbacks, because it's in Bill we trust, and when you're winning for 20 straight years, it's hard to ever knock anything Belichick's doing. But you go, why do you need to take Kevin O'Connell in the third round, who was an immediate flameout, when Brady's in his prime? Like, why do you need to take guys in the second and third round, like Garoppolo and Brissett, when Brady's 36 and maybe the greatest to ever play this position? So even with Rodgers having numbers that'll show you that there's some weird numbers in there, Colin, which I'm sure you're aware of because you've been anti-Rodgers his entire career. But there are numbers in there that you go, okay, maybe Green Bay sees something. This is them admitting it.
Yes.
I agree with you. I think they're a weird, good record team that wasn't a great team last year. But I still think when somebody needs help and you're converting running backs to wide receiver, I think you still need to do a little bit more for a 36-year-old quarterback instead of trying to draft his replacement.
Yeah. By the way, I'm glad you were the first guy that really admitted this, and you're from Boston. Maybe that's why we get along, because we both respect the Patriots. Let's just be honest here. They're not good at drafting. Ryan, they don't have a dynamic offensive player. They had 12 picks. They didn't draft one. They're not, we can just acknowledge, right? You picked up on this 6 years ago when we worked together. I could make an argument. Belichick is a below average drafter. Is that fair?
I like how you stumbled because it's almost like you didn't want to say it out loud. You're like, am I really going to say below average on the air? It's actually not that hard of an argument to make. I mean, he had a stretch of defensive backs where he couldn't figure it out. I mean, we're talking like second rounders that were immediate at flameouts. He's never been able to do the wide receiver position.
None.
And, they grabbed 2 tight ends. He loves his tight ends. He grabbed 2 third-rounders this year. So those are his offensive guys. But, it's one thing when Brady's back there on these timing routes and these combo routes out of the slot and you're just working against the defensive rules. It's another thing when it's Jarrett Stidham. So I don't know. I mean, I know you've been talking about him tanking for Lawrence. I'm not.
I call it rebooting. I'm going to talk about it next. I call it rebooting, not tanking. But go ahead.
I'm not there on that at all because I still think they have defensive talent on this team, especially, I think the importance now is the secondary. He's figured it out. He just went ahead and started spending money and bringing guys back after kind of whiffing on some of these picks. But I can't believe that this is what the receiving core is going to be.
God. And
I can't believe you allowed it to even happen with Brady last year. So I don't know how Stidham is supposed to make up for all of these shortcomings of talent.
It's great talking to you, buddy. Brought to us by Mercedes, the best or nothing. Mercedes-Benz. Ryen Russillo, The Ringer, and the Ryen Russillo podcast. Always a good listen. He and Simmons getting some heat, and I love it because they're both right on Rodman. Good talking to you, buddy.
Thank you.
All right. Ryan and I talk off the air and laugh often. Madonna broke up with Rodman, and she said that. She goes, I was looking for something else there, and there was nothing else there. Let's quit pretending. Rodman was a relentless rebounder. He was needy. He was high maintenance, and they were winning a bunch of games. You know, they won some games without him. Michael was great without him, and so was Pippen, and so was Phil Jackson. And he wasn't as fascinating as everybody thinks.